you can tell I'm excited about this. This is
This was one where I found it, and then you went down the rabbit hole.
we kind of found it at the same time, though, because I also did see an article about this. I
Mm,
initially didn't pick up, and then you posted it as well. And well, hang on. The more I read into this, it was really really interesting. So
mhm.
this is about fiber optic cables able to be used to listen to whales and dolphins. And we're talking about fiber optic internet cables. Now, I will say I do not have anything written down in my notes. I have one thing written down in my notes. So let me try and explain what it is off the top of my head. So it's a system called DAS, which stands for Distributed Acoustic Sensing. And what this is that they use a fiber optic internet cable, which you know what the inside of a fiber optic cable is. It's there to reflect light through it. So this reflective material can also reflect laser pulses. So what they have started to do is they have put sensors and a transmitter, and they will send a laser pulse through the fiber optic cable. Now, when a laser bounces off the walls of this cable, it will continue going, but it will also reflect a small amount of it back. So, and that's what's called backscatter. So, the way this works is that you've got one sensor on one end with the transmitter, and you've got one sensor on the other end, and it will just pulse this laser through. Which means any disturbance to the shape of this cable, the fiber optic cable, will change the geometry and strength of the laser and the backscatter. So, and what I mean by shape, this is most likely going to be from acoustics, from sound waves. So there's three main things that this could be. This could be earthquakes or other seismic activity like volcanoes. It could be boats, or it could be wildlife, and specifically whales and dolphins, because they are by far the loudest creatures in the ocean. So when a whale makes a sound, that sound wave will rebound off the wire, and it will very, very slightly change the shape of the cable. And that would adjust the backscatter. And based on the time and the time that it takes to get back to the center at the start, the time it takes to get to the center at the end, it can actually triangulate where that was, the frequency, and I don't know if they can work out the volume. They might be able to, but they can get all sorts of data with this. This is still an emerging technology. Uh, the reason why this made the news is because they started laying cables in the Salish Sea where the southern resident orcas are, and they have started to do tests with the cables they've laid there to see if they can actually detect the sounds made by whales. And this works really well as a test over there because they have tons of hydrophones in the water, so they can hear if there are actually whales, and they can
And it
correlate that with the cable.
and the hydrophones give them a reliable tool to calibrate it against. So it was like what we were talking about in terms of like trying to like positionally, place, it like how would you do that? Well, the answer would be, multiple lines because you can triangulate. But having the hydrophones, you can do, the same kind of thing. And and like you can use that to calibrate, your whole
Yeah.
system.
Now, this system can be used in pretty much any internet fiber optic cable under the sea, if it works. Which this is such an incredible breakthrough if it works. This is going to be big for seeing how whales and dolphins react to things like boats, to things like earthquakes. Heck, like the impact of this won't be in the Salish Sea. It could potentially be in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, like, well, when we were kind of first, talking about this, like I started, really thinking about, well, one, the capitalist end, because as we've often said, oftentimes to get conservation done, you have to also have a, capitalism, based reason to do it, right? And, one of those things, that I could see, right off from that idea, if, you know, um, transoceanic, internet cables have been abandoned, or are no longer, or are just no longer needed by telecoms, companies. Like that could be an opportunity for them to offload it to, for a tax break, or if it's abandoned, it may be really cheap to acquire.
Yeah,
And because I was also thinking about, just from the, you know uh context of like the Soviet era, like sonar nets that that NATO ran, and like ran it across choke points. So like, from Britain to Iceland to Greenland, and you think about how many whales probably cross that line. Like even if you were just did one line straight across, how many whales, every day, every month, cross that line, not just,
and
you know, one or two,
whales are loud as
different
well, so
species.
this can pick whales up from quite far away.
Yeah, and, like, even think about the idea of, like, if you could do a ring around Antarctica, like, just off of the
Ooh,
ice shelf,
ooh,
you know?
hmm, I'd love that.
Like, yeah, and I mean, you know, I'm sure there's some places that, would be impractical, you know, because like, just, going across the Pacific, especially the Southern Pacific, like, it's so remote and, uh, also so deep. Like, I could see that maybe there's some logistics there, but, like, I like it when we started talking about it, like, I kinda got excited because I immediately thought to
Oh,
the
you and me
capitalist
both.
end of, like, how could you take advantage of this? And, you know,
This
it was really interesting.
a lot of this month preparing for this podcast, by the way, was me actually trying to learn how this works. Because it is pretty complicated how it works. But I ended up having to ask in the Discord, how do we know the location? And someone
Mhm.
explained about backscatter, and I'm like, what's that? So I then look up backscatter, and now I'm kind of understanding it. That being said, there may be some of our listeners that think we're talking complete rubbish. Um, if you are one of those listeners and you think you know this system better than us, um, if you're in chat, please tell us in chat. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please leave a comment. If you know this system way more than we do, I'd love to be corrected because I think we're both invested into this. This is really interesting.
Yeah, and it's clear that it's still in the, like, beginnings of the experiment, phase. Like, we have a theory, now we're, applying the experiments, and, so, like, there's every chance that this, like, will not actually work out, that, like, that maybe, like, you know, um, boat noise and just other noise pollution is just too much to get anything practical. You never know. And it may end up finding that hydrophones are still more effective. I don't know. Well, certainly excited to see what the outcome, of this experiment is.